we got the ultimatum of going on our first tour in the back of a van in Europe or getting to go to university, and we chose the tour.
And there was no question between all three of us, like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Do you remember much about that tour?
No.
There was a time when people would be like, oh man, albums, like, do we... And I would always have the same answer, because it just kind of blew my mind that was even a conversation. Like, I love Playlist Jamie, and I love songs, and I love music in all its forms. But I was like, you're asking the wrong people. Has anyone asked the artists whether albums truly matter? And when I listen to an album like this, or any album I fall in love with that I know heart and soul was put into, it's not even a question.
Mm-hmm.
It gets made because you have to make it. It gets made because you have desire to make it. I don't even think you want to finish this record.
There were moments. Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it to me, because it's flowing so free out of you, and all of the experience that you've developed over the course of your life to date met this instinct, and it's just perfect, man. Congrats.
Thank you so much.
I love it. Thanks for joining us, man. It's been a minute. You've been busy. How was New York? I mean, to follow on from London, you're out here doing the same thing. The club night's such a beautiful way to just keep it exciting for yourself every night and get out of that routine and the banality of the same stuff.
It's really special, and it's so exhausting, and like the lead up to it is I'm kind of regretting doing it. And then as soon as I get into the club, and you just feel the energy from the people, and I get to feel comfortable in a space that I've built.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just better than any other gig.
Yeah, you got to work to get the comfort, right? That's the thing. We all expect to be comfortable. At the end of the day, it only comes almost as a form of relief in a weird way. People often misunderestimate or underestimate infrastructure. We show up, we pay, we present our ticket, we have a great night.
Yeah.
It's not our job to think about what went into it or what goes on after it. You've really had a first-hand encounter of that now. I know you've dabbled in this with the XX before as well. What is the sort of most challenging part beyond the fun? What's the thing that surprises you every time you decide to take on a challenge like this, building out a club night and doing all that?
I mean, personally, for me, it's like a very social experience, which is not my usual. So I'm kind of pushing myself to do these things that I'm not particularly good at, but it's always beneficial. I get to meet loads of people, artists and fans, and just get a better connection with like everything that's going on around me, because it's quite easy at this point in my career to be able to shut myself off, turn up at a festival and just play and leave.
So what's motivating you to keep pushing yourself to do that? Because you're not wrong. I know artists who have earned the right to do that, and they don't push themselves to be social because they don't have to. It wasn't in their natural wheelhouse anyway. They did what they needed to do, and they're back where they feel that they belong. And yet you could do that, and yet you push yourself to know, I want to know what is out there outside of my own experience.
I think ever since I started, there's been just a drive to like, I always feel like everything could be better. Even that's why it took so long for me to finish this album, because I finished it like 8 times, and then there was always this bit in me that felt like it could be one better. And I think the social element of this makes me better at my job as well, and just being introduced to new people, new music, young people making music. It's very beneficial for me.
Yeah.
And it feels rewarding after the fact.
No, it's a part of the job. I mean, you're totally right. Allowing yourself to experience that energy. Introversion is a term I think people really got attached to in the early days of you making music with Oliver and Romy. It was like, the biggest introverted band in the world, it's like headlining festivals, and it's all so quiet and so tucked away. And I think, shyness or a desire to sort of I think a lot of that just, people forgot how young you were. I mean, you were teenagers.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I think we weren't really thinking about that. We were just thinking about the presentation and what you were doing to survive. I'm sure they influenced each other. I'm sure the introversion was a part of it. But it must be one of the great joys at this point in your life to be in your 30s with your friends and see how that is no longer not only a tag, but actually the reality. Like, you're all living life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still feel all those introverted things, and I very much like to seclude myself when I can. It's just about finding the right balance. I can definitely drive myself crazy by being too on my own, and then my musical ideas are just bouncing around inside my own head, and I only have myself to answer to, which is a really great place to be in if you have the luxury to do it, but you can also go insane.
So you've been making this music on your own. You really haven't had anyone in the room with you at any time?
No, pretty much. I mean, there's a few more collaborations on this record, which was very helpful to get things moving when I became a bit like difficult when I was on my own. And that was just another thing that pushed me as well.
So when you were young, and I mean, it's not like you became introverted after you made music. You know, it's a sense of like being on your own and feeling comfortable in your own environment. I'd imagine that music really was the only source of that was the outlet. It was the way for you to not go completely crazy as a kid. I mean, I know someone very close to my heart found music because they struggled socially to fit in, and it's just been the most remarkable medicine and magic for them.
It was very natural to me to be doing music. I basically stopped going to school to do music instead in my bedroom.
Technically a dropout?
They let me do my exams, which was nice of them, but I basically wasn't there very much. None of us were, to be honest, because the music was taking over, and it just felt way more natural, and it was cathartic, and it was also a way to be in social spaces when I was a teenager and like not actually have to talk to anybody because I was behind the decks.
That's why we do it. That's why we do it. That's why we do it. Everyone thinks we're the kings, queens, and days of the party. This is not the case at all. We just want to get away from the party.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me. I never knew that part of your history, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding, but it sounds like because the XX was starting to connect and you hadn't done with your actual mandatory education or your education process, the conversations had to be had with school heads and whatnot that, listen, we're not trying to shirk our responsibilities here, but at the same time, we're working. We're actually working musicians now. So what were those conversations like? Because you hear about that during the Disney ages of like, oh, you're going to be homeschooled now because you're on Nickelodeon or whatever. And we've seen these stories over and over again. This is not that. This is like we're signed to Excel, to what was called Young Turks, now Young Excel. This is a real opportunity. Do you understand that, and will you support us so we can do both? Interesting for an education environment to be put in that.
Well, I don't think they really got asked the question. My parents were just constantly called by the school being told that I wasn't there.
Right.
They were luckily quite lenient because they could see what I was doing was more important to me. And then we got the ultimatum of going on our first tour in the back of a van in Europe or getting to go to university, and we chose the tour. And
there was no question between all three of us, like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Do you remember much about that tour?
No. It's all a blur.
Yeah, it's all a blur. I mean, I'm not surprised it was so fast. Does it feel fast now when you find yourself on the eve of releasing in Waves, when you think about, all of the journeys and experiences and adventures you've had to date? Does it feel like a blur, the whole thing?
It feels like it's ramping up a bit, but I think since the pandemic and I got a chance to stop and reflect on everything and realize how much of it was a blur and how amazing it was all, but I really couldn't remember much of my 20s. And I wanted to find more of that calmness and stillness and being present in my career after that, because it made me very happy. So I'm trying to find that balance between still doing all the really fun stuff and playing everywhere and making loads of music, but also having time to just like reflect on it and enjoy it.
Can I ask you what that experience has been like, and what sort of interesting points along the way have you been able to adopt and adapt to in order to maintain some balance, right? Because it's a discipline. You have to make a decision, a conscious decision that I'm not going to live like that anymore, as fun and as heady as it is. I'm not actually retaining anything, and my body is probably storing stuff I don't want it to store. So how am I going to become present, which is the goal of life?
Yeah.
How did you sort of approach that from a methodical way rather than just kind of like an ideological way? Because it's, what I mean?
Well, I'm still trying to work it out.
Yeah.
But I mean, simple things that were like in the pandemic and the lockdowns, the only thing you could do was go for a walk. And now I still try and do that just on a day off, like go do something very simple like that and not have a phone.
Yeah, yeah.
Try and use my phone as little as possible. I've been surfing a lot, and that stillness that you get out there, just waiting for waves,
People say it's like meditation.
It's like meditation, and it doesn't go hand in hand with making music, because actually you come out of the water and you feel very content, and you don't really need to do anything else that day. So I had to like find the balance between those two things as well.
That's the other thing, right? Everyone I know who surfs in particular, it occurs in snowboarding too, but it's seasonal unless you can chase it. Everyone I know who surfs says that once it really becomes a part of your actual essence, it's very hard to not do it all the time.
Yeah.
Like someone even said to me once, make sure you got a lot out of your system before you try.
Yeah, that's a good point.
In terms of like going out there and surfing now, you feel comfortable out in the ocean enough to be able to enjoy it rather than feel like you're still learning it, because it's one of those things that's pretty tough to pick up.
Yeah, I've been doing it for like 10 years now, so...
You got it.
Yeah, I'm obsessed.
You got this. I'm obsessed with where you made this record. I don't know if it was in the place where the picture was taken, with the view. Looks like it might be London or somewhere. It could be anywhere, but it's a view.
Oh, that's my studio in Soho.
That's your studio. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Thanks. You should come check it out when you're in London.
Thank you for the invitation. I will 100% love to do that. It immediately made me not only want to come and see it, but also want to make music. It was inspiring to me. I thought, my gosh, I want to get my music. I want to make music today.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an incredible spot. So let's just talk a little bit about the environment, what it's like to create in there, and obviously process is magic, but any essence of what the days or the nights are like in there, and what it feels like when something's starting to take shape. And like I always like it when I get 50% into something, I know it's something, and then I just loop it for 2 hours. Sometimes I just stare out the window. If there's a window, I'll just stare out the window, because I know it's on the right path, and whatever's going to come at me is going to inspire it to be better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do that all the time, and part of it's because like I know it's in a good place, and I'm scared to touch it in case it gets worse, which definitely does happen
It's
too.
Everybody. Where did the album start for you? I know that's a hard question to answer because sometimes they just are, but was there a moment when, and even if you just started other songs, where you felt like, okay, I've got the start of something now, a body of work I know will reveal itself?
There's a track on the album called Daffodil.
Oh, what an amazing song.
Thanks. It's with Kelsey Lou.
So I have to remember that compliments are not for everyone. It's hard to absorb them, so I'll try to limit them as much as I can. But you do know my reputation, don't you? So yeah, it's with Kelsey and John, Panda Bear.
Originally, it was just with Kelsey Lou, and it was something that I was making. It was the first thing I started making in the lockdown after I'd had some time not doing anything. And it was all over text, basically. Lou was sending me voice notes, and I was making that piece of music, and it was the first thing that I'd felt that I'd made that kind of had elements in it that I thought could run through the album.
What were they, the elements?
The spoken word stuff, the storytelling, and the connection that I had with Lou as a person anyway, because I've known her for a long time, and the collaboration element that was helping me push things forward without having to think too much about myself on my own.
Because the trust was there.
Yeah, it was just that. Then after that initial demo, I managed to make a bunch of other things in quite quick succession, and it felt like maybe finally an album was on the horizon.
Do you feel like you're making dance music when you're making an album? I know it seems like a strange question, because people will listen to this album and dance to it and go and see you perform in environments where dance music thrives, and you are 100% an essential part now of this modern culture that has given us so much decade after decade, where the outsiders go to let go and be free. But do you see it that way? Because it's still a genre, it's still an environment that has expectations of tempo, expectations of, the list is long. Does it matter to you that it's dance music, or is it just music?
With this album, it mattered to me more, because when it was in lockdown, I was starting to get excited about the idea of playing shows again. And I was excited about this new music I was making, and I wanted to be able to play it. So it had to fit in the way that I perform, which is DJing. Also, my favorite thing to do in the studio is just to dance around on my own. So it usually ends up with some kind of danceable element to it.
Is it tough sometimes to not feel like you're covering old ground or falling into some of those beautiful things we love about the music that inspired us and raised us, especially if we keep it in a certain culture, in a certain environment? That like, it's important that it's not like, okay, I know when I put that in there, it makes me feel like I did when I heard that record 10 years ago. but I want to make sure that I'm not crossing the line into something that feels like it's almost a pastiche of what I love.
I mean, anytime I've tried intentionally to make a piece of music that is an idea that I've had or is based on something that I've heard that has inspired me, it ends up really boring or like a pastiche.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, well, that's a beautiful realization, because that just removes an enormous amount of potential disasters.
Yeah.
But it also creates a much narrower environment to be inspired, because inspiration comes from everything, and music can be it, or your heroes or things that inspired you as a kid. But it sounds to me like you're narrowing it down into to something that's got to feel singular to you in a way.
And it's usually something, it's quite hard to explain, but it's just a feeling.
Trust me, I know. I've spent 35 years trying to get the answer, and I accept it's never going to come.
Yeah.
But please give me your version of it. I'd love to add.
Well, I don't know. It's just a gut feeling, I guess.
A gut feeling.
And it's usually like being in a flow state and following all the mistakes as the music is happening, and just making sure that you're not trying to drive it too much, and moving fast is usually the key.
Execution. Is it hard for you to finish though?
Yeah. But this time, I've enjoyed finishing this album more than I've enjoyed finishing anything. Usually it's a bit of a slog. And this time, one of the reasons why it took so long is because I just was having so much fun with the finer details, working out the track list, so it really felt like an album.
It's perfect. The track list is absolutely perfect. I mean, that's what I meant. Like it's start to finish. It's a time capsule. It is a document for club. It's like you put them next to the greats, the great albums that we all go back and listen to decades out there, or 10, 5 years later, and go, oh man, that is the experience. What's it like listening to it from the point of view of somebody who's a DJ, but probably doesn't find themselves naturally on the dance floor, having the euphoria feeling the euphoria that others feel when they hear your music? There's an interesting relationship between the people who create the euphoria and the people who experience it. They're not often the same people.
I actually love going raving.
Because of the darkness and because of the fact that no one cares about you or where you are or what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's, I think you can have quite profound thoughts, even in a altered state on the dance floor. Mm-hmm. And you can just have a lot of fun. And I find it one of the most inspiring things is to go out clubbing.
Clearly, because it's all over your record, man. Which brings us to these illegal raves. I guess they're illegal, that were going on in London on these barges and on these boats, which I knew nothing about because I don't live there anymore. But man, it made me wish I had.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the stuff that people listening to this and watching this won't know anything about, because they went around in the 80s, early 90s, even in the early 2000s when these waves were happening and it was going down. And the whole goal was to try to avoid getting shut down, but you wanted them to try. The cat and mouse was sort of a thing, right? Can you just tell us how you found out about these, what was going on? Because, it just sounds like a great night.
Yeah, well, I think, I don't know, just from people, word of mouth. And I think these sorts of raves were happening in Hackney all the time anyway, but maybe less frequent. But after the lockdown eased and people were allowed to go outside a bit more, then you could just go and cycle down the canal near where I live, and there'd be like a rave on a riverbank, a rave in a barge, like every 10 minutes. And you could spend all night doing that, and you could just see...
No door policy.
No,
as long as it's not overpacked, you're good.
Sometimes you had to have a boat to get there, like to the other side of the river.
This is brilliant.
And you'd pay a guy to ferry you across. Just seeing like the fact that everybody was so excited to be back together.
Yeah. It
really reinstalled the reason why I loved the music.
And that's all over the album? The spirit of that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the sense of like what we'd missed. Mm-hmm. I heard Life got played 3,500 times at Glastonbury. The thing about these big festivals, in particular Glastonbury, is there's always a couple of ones. Mm. Someone always gets the montage at the end of the coverage on BBC, normally from the other stage with the sun going down, or maybe a headliner, like a Blur, Tender or something, or the Universal. Someone's getting the montage, which means you kind of, as a band or an artist, sort of captured Glastonbury's heart, right? And someone always makes a song which just continues to echo everywhere, from the campsites to the tents, to the unofficial tents, to that rave, to the pop-ups, to this. And I just heard it was Life. I just heard Life was that song. I'm assuming you were there.
I was.
Did you hear it yourself moving around?
I mean, that's a real Blur. But
So the answer is yes. Just to qualify my statement, the answer is yes. I'll take the yes.
yeah.
What was it like moving around there, knowing that you had this body of work and that you'd captured the spirit of community again, and then you're in probably the biggest community in the arts, and just to have that moment, to just bask in that for a second. What was it like this year for you, Glastonbury?
I mean, I was so thrilled that I got to play on the Friday and that I got to bring my friends out and the show went really well.
Yeah, Friday's the joy, right? Because then you just like the hook.
Yeah. And then I just spent the rest of the weekend doing Glastonbury like you're meant to do it, and just walking, a lot of walking and seeing lots of things I didn't know what it was, and staying up way too late. And yeah, it was awesome.
Just having an amazing time. Were your friends from the XX there as well?
Yep.
Amazing. So you move around as friends. That's what you are. You're like family. You also have this band that everybody loves. And yet we've all completely accepted and acknowledged now, after a little bit of a tantrum, that you're going to do it the way you're going to do it, and that there's nothing to be scared of. When it happens, it will happen. Just let us just do it. So how rewarding has it been to get away from something that a lot of artists don't get away from when they present something we love and then decide to go live a different life, even with the potential of coming back together? We just don't leave them alone. It's like we mean well, but we're like, oh yeah, it's great, but when are you guys getting back together? I feel like everyone's cool now, and I about that. Don't you agree? Or do you still get it wherever you go?
I get it.
You still get it.
Yeah.
I suppose that's better to get it than not get it.
Yeah, it's nice that people are excited about it, and it's not too much. It's just a nice amount of people want us to do more stuff, and we have been in the studio like 1 week a month for a few months recently, and it's just nice to be back together doing what we do. It's very natural. I've worked with a lot of people in the last few years, and the chemistry that we have is just noticeably so different. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, you don't need to, because we hear it in the music, and also, you don't fall into that collective role in your life at such a young age, unless even without realizing it in the moment. Why would you? That it's something precious you've got to hold on to, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I've only just realized it, which sounds crazy.
No.
It's always difficult to make an album, and especially when it's a compromise between three people. And again, after this time of us all doing separate things, coming back together, I've realized just to embrace it and enjoy it. And I think I'm enjoying the difficulty of it as well now, which is nice.
Yeah, because maturity allows you to actually approach that from a point of view of like positive solutions and not ego, like, but what about my vision? It's like, no, cool, we're serving the same vision. It's interesting how individually, to me as a fan, all of you have kind of continued to sort of find a broader meeting place. This was the XX before, and now it's the XX, but you're still in the same circle. It's not like, Oliver went off and Hideous Bastard was like a thrash metal record. Like it's a beautiful, one of my favorite albums, and it's such a beautiful, honest, amazing album. But it still has the essence of you and Romy in it, and Romy's like, she's full blown dance DJ diva and spectacular. So how has it been kind of coming back together with all these different influences and different lessons and different things that you've learned, because you were all kind of sharing the same one or two things before?
Yeah.
And it just must broaden the palette of what you're making. I mean, it must feel like it's so wide open for you now.
It does. And we are all in like very different places mentally and in our lives, like outside of music. So it's more of a challenge. But I think that was kind of the point of us all going out and doing this. And now it's about bringing it back in. And the challenge is going to make the album what it is, and I think going to make it the best one yet. But it's going to be more effort.
I think you should just start in Hyde Park or somewhere. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I know that's like almost, that could come across as offensive, because I'm just throwing such a big number or big thing at you.
Yeah.
I don't mean it from that perspective. I mean it from the point of view of like, what you've all done as people, in terms of the music you've given us and the joy you've given us, has only just added so much value to what the XX already is. I see so much goodwill waiting. I see so many people waiting for that to all come together.
That's a nice thought.
That would be amazing. I think just start somewhere. Let it just be one big celebration, and you can build it however you want for the rest of it. But just give everyone a chance to do it once with you, or as many people as possible in that one time, to say, and like, we missed this.
Yeah.
Missed you. Or
That'd be fun.
100,000 of you. Anyway, that's a stupid idea. Can we talk about the collaboration on the actually, no, it's an awesome idea. I'm going to retract that. You should totally do that. Let's talk about Waited All Night and what it was like to actually have them on your album. Was that something that was started for the XX? Did you come in, was it specifically you knew that you wanted it to be for you? How did that dynamic work when you kind of got both cooking?
I always knew that I wanted them on the album just because it would feel very unnatural not to have them on it. They're the reason that I can do all of this. That song actually started out as a demo that me and Romy wrote when we were in LA, like writing songs for pop stars. And we just wrote a bunch of songs and spent a few weeks here. And then there was a little like ad lib at the end that is the chorus now. And it had been around for years and I remembered that I loved it. Turned that into the chorus and then asked Romy to write a new verse and then asked Oliver too. So it was actually very fragmented compared to how we write as a band. But that was kind of cool as well because, again, like the point of doing this was to do things in a new way.
Yeah. How was writing for pop stars?
It's fun. It's really nice to be able to do that sort of thing and then go home and make music for yourself again because it feels even more meaningful.
Yeah. And I guess it's a whole new discipline of letting go because once the song is sent, and even if the song has been accepted or cut, as you know, there's 1,000 people or 100 people between that beautiful moment of inspiration, whether it comes out. Have there been moments like I've heard hundreds of times from my friends where someone sends you back something and you're like, it's yours now, but it's not mine anymore. My name's not on this. It just doesn't feel like me anymore.
It seems that production is working at the moment. There's so many producers involved and it gets sent through so many different stages that I just go into it without any preciousness at all.
Yeah.
Which is helpful. And it kind of did help me for a bit in just like getting stuff done, even for my own music.
Sometimes I'll talk to an actor, a friend of mine or whatever, and we'll talk about a movie or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, I hate that film. But they're in it. And when they made it, they loved the experience of shooting it. But then it went through the edit, it went through the director, it went through the studio, and by the time it came out, they were like, man, it just wasn't what we set out to make, and it is, but it's cool. But they seem very sort of okay with that.
Right.
Even when they're disappointed, they've detached enough from it because they know their role. And I think it spares people from being hurt when critics in particular would say like, Jamie XX was wonderful in the film, but it's a terrible, terrible film. You'd be like, well, I won.
Yeah.
Music, we can't think like that. That's why being a critic is such a hard road to walk when you're a music critic because you're really telling one person like, hey, what you think and what you feel sucks. It's like, oh. So like, does it get like that when you're writing for other people and like, have there been things that have come out? You're like, I don't like it. Even though my name's on it, I don't actually like it. I'm not going to ask you for names, but just
Yes, 100% that happens. And actually with time, everything I've ever done, I feel slightly about that. I feel slightly like that because it's almost like reading an old diary whenever you hear it. So I don't really like listening back to anything.
Wow, when was the last time you listened to an XX record?
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
Probably when the last XX album came out.
Wow, so years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get the man. Your half of the trade is beautiful, and you get to express yourself and do it all, But we do get a half of it. We do get to love it forever, and I do sometimes. Yeah, it does kind of sadden me a little bit. Sometimes an artist can't have that experience. You know what I mean? It's almost bittersweet.
Yeah.
That when you have to let it go, you really have to let it go.
Yeah, I had that realization making this album, actually. And that's why I spent so long doing it, because I was really enjoying the process. And I realized that, like, before, I'd got into a headspace where I was trying to make music for, as a means to an end, like, because it needs to be done, needs to be finished, and people need to hear it. But then I realized that after it's out of my hands, I never listen to it, and I try not to look at any reviews or not on social media. So
yeah,
it really is like non-existent to me after that. So I've got to enjoy the actual making of it.
The only feedback you really get is when you see people move to it.
Mm-hmm.
So in these club nights, man, I mean, I was getting various reports from New York. Everyone I know went to New York. I couldn't go. Everyone was telling me what you were playing or not playing, and it sounds like you've been quite selective from the album in terms of what you were dropping and what you weren't dropping.
Yeah, well, it's all very spontaneous, and I was just going on how the crowd was feeling, and I was also like, because it's a space where feels like they're with you. If you've done it properly, I could get away with not playing too much of my own stuff and people would still be in it.
The art of DJing, man, I mean, you've got to read the room, right? I mean, so let's talk about reading the room. From your perspective and your individual experience as a DJ, as somebody who goes and plays music and wants to give everyone a great night that has lots of different twists and turns and an overall picture. How do you read the room? How do you do it and stay focused on what you're playing? Like, what are the signals? What are the signs? What are you looking for when you're looking to either change, switch, stay? How do you do it?
I think like a lot of it is just down to feeling. Sometimes I don't even have to be like looking at the room to know. It's just about sort of how long a particular groove has been going, for me at least, because I play quite eclectically. I like to get people into like sort of a mode and then switch them out of it, and I can see if that mode's working or not by looking at the crowd, but most of the time I can just feel it because I've done it a lot.
Who are your favorite DJs?
Well, Francois K played in New York and it was like enlightening.
Can we talk a little bit about what you got from that experience of watching one of your, I mean, let's just call him a hero, right? Play, knowing that this is your environment too. You got to do it too. So, you're on the field with one of your favorite players and you're watching them work the ball whilst you're on the field. Like, what did you get out of it?
I think because especially with the floor lineup in London and here and in New York, I've got to see a lot of people DJing in the last few months. And it's all been amazing. And there's like the current trend is quite fast music and very bass driven, and some of it's not like that soulful.
We're talking 135 and up.
Yeah, and I love that. I play a lot of that stuff.
But you're right, brings a franticness to it.
Yeah.
Unless you get to drum and bass and then you get so fast you can half time and it becomes soulful again. But you're right.
Seeing Francois come in for 2.5 hours and just like unify the room and play everything from rock to like jungle, garage, new breakbeaty stuff and disco and like all of his old edits, it just like reminded me how good it can be.
What do you think was motivating him that night? What was he searching for? What was driving his selections?
Well, I don't know. We had a really good chat for like an hour before he played, and that was also super inspiring. And just talking about the different waves of dance music that have happened over his long career.
Yeah.
And how he DJs now compared to how he used to.
What were the differences between young Francois and now Francois?
Well, the way he plays now, when he's like in his element, is he has 8-track stems on each turntable essentially. So he's mixing whilst remixing each track, which is mad. He showed me the setup. It's so fun.
Amazing.
He's really got into the depths and doing something different that nobody else is doing.
Yeah, truly creative experience every single night. And also, like you say, I mean, he said something really brilliant that I'll always remember before, which was, letting the mistakes happen, like letting them flow, just working with the mistakes and just using them as a reason to iron it out. I mean, he's going to have that all the time. That's going to be his night. Every night's going to be like, oh, what a beautiful mistake. Oh, what a terrible mistake. But on to the next thing.
Spontaneity came up a lot in our chat. It's definitely a lot about being able to do that and being able to know the record so well that you can be spontaneous and feel confident about it.
Which is something that unfortunately at the end of this club run will have to be compromised because you'll have to put a show on. We don't have to do anything, but you probably want to put a show on. And I guess the idea is to make it as spontaneous as possible, but also, do you want to make a show? And if you want to make a show, that requires cues and lights and beats and things like that. So does that excite you now that you're getting this kind of nightclub experience under your belt and you're seeing what it's like to just be purely spontaneous?
It does. I love that I get to do both. I love playing for massive crowds at festivals, and I get to bring dancers with me, and the people that work, like my crew, the lighting people and the sound people, they're all aware that I want to be able to be spontaneous still. So there's no cues, and they just know my music inside out. So whenever I play something of mine, they can
know what to do, yeah.
something, but it's all very spontaneous, and I think they enjoy it as well.
Do you enjoy the touring?
Yeah, I do.
Even as someone who likes to spend a lot of time on their own and has a beautiful studio overlooking Soho?
Yeah, well, again, it's about balance, and it's all definitely going to get a bit more crazy over the next year, but I am looking forward to it.
Okay, so you dance around in your studio listening to music. I'm sure you listen to a lot of people's music, but I'm sure you listen to your own. Why would you not dance to it if you weren't happy? You know, if you love it, you dance to it. What song on the album did you dance to the most when you were making it? And then you felt you really kind of got you moving. And was there one that really jumped out that just gave you the sense of like, man, like, I'm so happy right now?
I think the last track on the album, Falling Together, I'd had that piece of music for a while, and I really liked all the elements of it, and I thought it worked, but I always felt like there was something missing. And then I was working on a contemporary dance piece for Una Doherty, which involved a 25-minute long monologue, and she sent me the demo of the monologue, just talking into her iPhone.
And for people who don't know who Una Doherty is, could you elaborate a little bit?
She is a choreographer and dancer. She made a music video for me for I Don't Know, and her shows are just amazing and weird, and they involve like kind of acting and dancing and spoken word, and they're super eclectic as well. So I've got to know her over the years. She helped me with finding dancers for my show and choreographing things for my shows, and she made that music video for me. And she's super inspiring just to talk to, and even the inflections in her accent are just like, there's something musical about it. So I ended up using the voice note that she sent me over the piece of music that I'd already made, and just cutting it from 25 minutes to 3.5 minutes. And there was just a moment when I was in that studio in Soho, I was looking out the window, and it did feel very emotional. And that felt like I was close to finishing.
Yeah, that emotion, man, when it comes up and it's good. When it's like it's a happy thing, and it's like it feels like all the sad emotions you've had, but it's just for some reason you just can't stop laughing and smiling. It's just such an incredible experience.
It's a great thing.
That's at the center of it all. When you look back on this album, and I know it's hard to do, it's only just finished and you're out playing, you know, you're getting ready to put it out, but in the future, you think when you look back on this album, what will be the sort of overarching kind of memories or the overarching feelings you'll get from this period in your life? Like, what will be the things you hope you'll remember about making this record?
My friends, probably. I don't know. I feel like I've consolidated my life a lot more, and I've just got the people around me that are the most important and that I love, and they are also super inspiring to me, and we kind of work in similar circles, and we always weirdly end up in the same parts of the world, even though we all have to travel for work. And I love it, and it just like it brings me joy, and it makes me love my life. I feel very lucky. Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing. Man, I've had such a good time talking with you and catching up with you, and you know, I'm really am grateful for the way that you and your friends have chosen to not only live your lives, but put it through music and just keep giving us reasons to, like, I love Midair. I think it's brilliant album, you know, and I love Hideous Bastard, and I love everything that you do. I'm excited for the reunion of the band. I use that word really lovingly, you know, the reunification of the band as a creative unit. But we'll talk then about that.
We will.
In the meantime, thanks for coming in, Jamie, and thanks for this brilliant album. I love it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.